Welcome back to Today in Yuma. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Teresa.
Joining us today, we have Somerton Cocopah Fire Department Chief Paul Deanda. That's a mouthful.
There you go.
And we also have Cocopah Emergency Manager Mike Fila.
Fila?
Well, what's the right way?
I say it Filas.
Okay, well then I will say it Fila.
That's fine.
All right, well thank you both for joining us today, gentlemen. We have you here because September is National Preparedness Month.
Emergency Preparedness
Okay,
Month.
so
Forgot one word.
like we're running out of the month here, but we still need to be important. Take that stuff very seriously. All right, we've spoken with other individuals and other agencies over several years, but we want to speak with you from your perspective too. And it is very important. A lot of people think, well, we don't have hurricanes here. We're obviously not going to have a tsunami here. Why do we really need to be prepared for a variety of things? And you're going to share with us why we do need to take these precautions.
Absolutely. And one of the things to take into consideration is, like you said, the hurricanes. And if you go online and you look at the NOAA, you see the amount of hurricanes that have actually impacted Arizona. It's incredible because we're so far away from the water. And in 4 of those events, particularly 4 different hurricanes that reached us, they overcame our system. Not just in Somerton and Cocopah, but even in Yuma County. As I remember as a young man, all the power lines from Yuma to Somerton being snapped in one of the hurricanes. And that took about 15 days to get power back in Somerton. And so, that's a very, very hard thing, especially on those that were never prepared. That's what this month is about, right?
Yes.
It's about preparing.
And hurricane season aligns with our warmer part of the year too. So imagine that. We don't want to be without power at all from May until mid-October. It's never an ideal situation, but when you're dealing with extreme heat like we've had in 2020, it hasn't been a fun time.
Absolutely. And what's something to keep in mind, and we were talking about this, Mike and myself and Mr. Athens, was when something occurs like a hurricane, or let's say something as simple as a power outage that's multi-days here in summertime. When people don't listen to the message that we're sharing with them and don't prepare, they don't have go bags, our system is quickly overwhelmed. You have, our case, you have 7 people on duty at our fire department. And then at the Cocopahs, you have basically Mike, he's a one-man show, and their police department, which is 4 or 5 people a day. And so you have thousands of people that are going to depend on them when things go wrong. Well, if many of those listen to our message and prepared and have their go bags, they can help themselves, they can help their neighbors even. But when they don't do that, then we're taxed immediately as soon as that event happens.
Oh, absolutely. And then that's when, again, you see the system just become overrun with the calls for service, and putting those go bags together, your 72-hour emergency preparedness kits, as we often encourage people to do, isn't something you need to sit down and compile all today, because that can be a financial burden on some people if you want to get everything on there's a recommended list you can find. But it's one of those things you can work on over time. But the education is the important part. That means sitting down with family and loved ones and talking about what you will do in the event of an emergency.
I know, and it's just that conversation needs to be happened. And if you have that conversation and you have some sort of a plan where you're going to do and where you're going to meet up, and then you could build that go kit to fit your needs. You take that list and you modify the things in there that are going to fit you. Not all those things on that list are going to be maybe that you'll use, so you substitute them with things that you will use, so that you make your 72-hour kit last for 72 hours. Because we're going to be responding to emergencies, life-threatening situations, and we can't come and because you're out of water or food. I mean, that's something that we'll have to respond to at some point. But it's just having a plan, having a kit ready to go, and just knowing what you're going to do is very important.
One of the things, too, that I think a lot of people didn't really realize was important until 2 years ago when we had that flood that hit the very end of September, early October, especially down here on the north end of town, where it sits a little bit lower than other parts of the community. People were scrambling for sandbags. You can when you pick them up from different places, they're empty anyway. Rarely are you actually going to get filled sandbags for yourself, but you can keep those in your garage or fold them up and put them in any type of place that's dry and out of the sun. Keep them for whenever the situation may arise that you need them. So that's just another example of something to have on hand, because people were scrambling. Our hardware stores were running out of them. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I can come up with 5 other alternate ideas of things that I could use in lieu of picking up sandbags from those various places. we have a fault that runs underneath this. Yuma experiences earthquakes. And there could be situations that do arise that leave us incapacitated for a while as a result of that.
Plus, there are a lot of other hazards. There's an earthquake a volcano that's in Mexico that's only 60 miles from Yuma. So if that was ever to erupt, I mean, there's a lot.
2020, be careful.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
know.
putting that in the universe right now? I don't think we want to do that.
I'm not trying to scare anybody, but there are a lot of hazards
Right.
that are around
Yeah.
us that could happen.
No, great examples. But even if there were a standard power outage for some other reason, that could create a challenge for some individuals. So we often say it's good to have a buddy maybe across town somewhere because perhaps both of you are not without power at once.
But there has been instances where the whole town has lost power, you know. So again, we have experienced it. We make jokes about 2020, but even with the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of things that had happened. There was a lot of uncertainty. People were scrambling to make sure they had what they had. But you know, that just goes right along with having those kits and, you know, having the food and the medicine and everything that you're going to need for your whole family.
Absolutely. And one of the things to think about is it's something as simple as this. Because we think of a go bag and people think very broad brush, but it's as simple as how many members of the family do I have? Do I have extended family that's going to depend on me? Do I have a mother or a father that's elderly and they're going to have to end up with our family in this event? Multiply those people times the amount of days that you need, which is 3 days, 72 hours, and then you'll know what you need. And then you can start building, like you said, over time, so you eventually accumulate these things. But then beyond that, these months are good to remind those that already have those kits that they need to start rotating their product.
Oh, true.
You know, if you've had water there for 2 years, I don't think I'd drink it. So, you know, start to rotate, use it during the year and replace it. And that way it's always fresh.
And one of the examples of the essentials you do need to have is 1 gallon of water per person per day. So like Chief DeAnda said, if you have a family of 4, you're looking at 12 gallons of water just for you. But if you think beyond and you have extended family and you're taking care of those, it can seem kind of like a daunting process, but start working on that, you know, little by little. And we encourage you, don't forget your pets or special medication you might need.
Absolutely. And then going to the medicine part of it, reach out to the local fire department, the local police department, the local water and sewer department, and find out if they have facilities that have generators. Because when everything happens, where are you going to keep your medicine cool if that's required?
Exactly.
And it's all about looking forward and thinking about what's going to happen. Like you talked about the sandbags. One of the things that really has kind of been an irritation to me as the chief is we hand out sandbags every time we have a flood event, which is common in Somerton because it's flat. But we're replacing bags for people that were given bags the previous storm. They never emptied the bags and folded them and put them away like you said. But something that simple, keep them ready for the next event.
Right. I think it just, again, having conversations because other people, and talk with your neighbors too. People don't really know their neighbors anymore. We've stressed the importance of that on our show many, many times, and it's always a good thing to have. You want to be friendly with them all the time, not necessarily when a disaster hits and you need something from them.
No.
So kind of cultivate those relationships ahead of time too, because then you can work collectively and kind of look out for one another in that respect too.
It's true.
But we encourage people, be prepared. One of the things we had someone mention were funnel clouds. We had that storm, a brief storm roll through South County in the San Luis area the other day. And it was kind of looked like a mini haboob from the videos that I saw. And that's one of the situations that can impact people pretty severely.
And that was spur of the moment. That just came through, and I'm watching. Yeah, and I'm watching the weather all day, and you see the weather pattern. It's either going to hit us or go to Welton. It's just a hit or miss. And the what is it? 2 years ago we had Hurricane Rosa that came up this way, and then it moved over towards the Tucson area, and the Tohono O'odham Nation, they got hit really bad.
Right.
So it's just a matter of what path it's going to take, and we're in that path, you know.
And we tell people, change your windshield wipers, just check them, but they're so used to them drying and we never need them here until you do, and then you just end up you're cycling mud back and forth.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, I remember I think it's going on 8 years now, because we're talking about natural disasters. But we had that one rainstorm come in, 2 storms hit right over Somerton and started circling each other.
Yeah.
And I believe it was 6 or 9 inches that dropped within like 2 hours.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and I went to the station to help the guys respond. We responded like 40 some events, you know, at that time, the majority of which were people driving in retention basins because they couldn't see anything because the streets were filled curb to curb. And then you have the next day you have Public Works. They can't do the things they normally do because now they're clearing roadways. They're trying to pump
Exactly.
water out of places, and so the public being prepared lessens the load on the after event part of it,
Right.
which is the streets and the sewer and the sanitation, the fire department, the police department, trying to do their normal things they do every day. And they're not interrupted by those additional people that weren't prepared.
Exactly, the extra things that come along. But when you talk about people driving, because I do remember that incident and the photos that we saw, water up to where the windows are on vehicles, it was crazy. People driving through areas that are already blocked off, do not enter. It creates some additional challenges too. We always talk about the Arizona Stupid Motorist Law and how you shouldn't drive into these flooded areas. A lot of people think that's going through washes and stuff. That we don't want you doing through streets either, because again, Somerton's flat. When you do that, you're forcing water up into people's homes who are already probably flooding.
Yep.
It's a respect type of thing, but also respect for our first responders who could be responding to a far more severe situation that's taking place during whatever that disaster may be at the time.
Yeah, when you see that water on the road, it might not look a lot, but when you get into it, it could be 1 or 2 feet, and then 1 or 2 feet is going to lift your car and move your car. And that you need to mind the signs that are there and pay attention.
And you don't want to be the knucklehead that thinks it's cute to get in his boat because there's enough water to put his boat in the middle of the street because he wants to take a picture and post it on Facebook, and doesn't realize that every time he moves that boat, he's creating a wave that's pushing water onto his neighbor's property into their homes. That's the other thing we had at Somerton when that event happened is everybody and their mother got in their cars and were driving their cars through this real heavy water, and they're on the streets, but they don't understand. They're pushing the water over. That little wave is creating more damage to property.
Yeah. This was the 2015 flooding.
There you go.
So I actually responded to the Cocopondian tribe, the East Reservation. We had to evacuate 70 individuals from their homes that time.
Wow.
And we were in waist deep water, and there was people that were stuck in their cars that we had to evacuate from their cars.
Wow.
It was a nightmare.
That's when the rain caused the canal bank to give
The
way.
canal bank gave away. Yeah. Yep.
Just some examples of things that can happen here. Because
And it can happen. It really can. We've had it happen here before, so that's why we stress the importance of
Right.
making sure that you have your preparedness
Absolutely.
kit.
we don't have to shovel sunshine, but there are other things we may have to contend with. So the importance of having those emergency kits ready, start working on those now and take notes as a family about important things because kids have different perspectives too.
Yeah.
They may think of something we don't,
Yep.
and you need to have that conversation.
And remember, go to the ready.gov and on there there's templates, there's every piece of education you need, from if you're in kindergarten to you're a senior citizen. There's pet preparedness there. There's you got to think about your pets too.
Yes.
When you're gonna get up and go, you better make sure you have all the stuff that's gonna keep them content, because if you're not, you're gonna, just like a kid, if you forget their bag, you're gonna have to adapt and overcome, and you're gonna have to do the same with your dogs and your cats and your
Exactly. They have
Horses.
great checklists too, so
Yeah.
it's a good list if you're just looking for a little bit more direction.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us today, gentlemen. We want to keep everyone safe, and by speaking with professionals such as yourselves, it gives people another perspective too of things that maybe we don't always think about, and we want to make your job easier too.
Yes,
Thank
Right.
you so much for inviting us.
It's our pleasure.